as trans activists continue their effort to take over women's sports and spaces, and frankly, more dangerously, the minds and bodies of America's children, we're seeing a backlash and an increasingly percentage of the public finding the courage to push back, thankfully. Last week, William Bach III, a member of the NCAA Committee on Infractions, resigned from his position, citing the organization's policy of allowing men to compete in women's sports as the primary reason for his departure. Now, in his resignation letter, Bach said, quote, "I have watched the NCAA double down on its regressive policies which discriminate against female student athletes." Now, here's the question. Will there be any soul searching over at the NCAA? And might we see more officials stand up for women and for truth? Joining me now to discuss this, Doreen Denny, Senior Director of Government Relations for Concerned Women for America. Doreen, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony. It's wonderful to be here today. Thank you.
So let's start with the obvious. The NCAA's policy allowing male athletes in women's sports has had no justification in law and science. There's a lot of pushback, but that doesn't seem to deter them.
Well, I think you're right. I think that we've seen the trend toward activism, and we see it in so many different contexts that really has shut down any reason or common sense. And unfortunately, the NCAA is a coward. You know, it's a coward to institutions that are woke. It's a coward to the culture that wants to try to convince us that males can take women's places because they're now female. And we know that's just a farce. And so what Bill Bach has done has really sent a strong message to the NCAA. And, you know, his reasons come from his own expertise. He was a part of the U.S. doping agency that litigated Lance Armstrong and the testosterone doping scandal that happened. And he said even, you know, Lance Armstrong's doping scandal it pales into comparison about the advantage that males have in women's sports. And so we need the kind of common sense expertise. We need people to take a stand and be courageous to stand up. And we just have to keep working. 24 states now, actually 25, with Alaska doing it administratively, has stood up to say women's sports are for women only. Most of those include college. The entire Southern Educational Conference, the SEC, states with colleges, now with the exception of Georgia, and we hope that they actually pass a law, now have protect college female athletes. You would think that all of these things are sending a message to the NCAA that they need to back off their regressive policies. But it's just going to take more effort and more people to stand up.
So the NCAA has a relatively new president, Charlie Baker, former Republican governor of Massachusetts. Is there any chance that he's going to back away from this? I mean, as he sees, as you try, the trend is not toward this. The trend is away from this. When you go to the actual level of the states and the locals where girls are participating in sports. So, I mean, is he seeing the trends?
Well, I hope he's seeing the trends. I hope he's reading the news, and I hope he sees what's happening right in the backyard of the NCAA right now, where we have two athletes in season, at least in Division III, that are breaking records, being heralded as Women Performer of the Week. These are males that have previously competed as males, just like Leah Thomas, and now they're now in the female category. And so, you know, Concerned Women for America, when he was appointed, said we hope that this would be a reset, that Charlie Baker would come in, recognize what was happening, the trend even then, because we just seen what happened when Leah Thomas won a national championship, that he would be open-minded, and actually more than open-minded, that he would look back and start a process to reevaluate. That hasn't happened. He's testified in front of two congressional committees, one in the Senate, one in the House, where he's basically doubled down on the policy, trying to pass the buck in some cases, saying that national governing bodies and the Olympics are doing this. Well, we've seen internationally that governing bodies are going the opposite direction.
Right.
I would like to be able to give Charlie Baker some space and some opening to actually look at the facts and have these messages that we're seeing from Bill Bach, who's talking about integrity in sports, and from others, and to have him have the courage to actually start a process to not only reevaluate it, but to recognize that the NCAA really has no place to be dictating to states and schools what the policy around this should be. This has become institutional discrimination against women. It's nothing less than that. And for women to be disadvantaged in this way as an entire class, for the disparate impact that happens, these are actually violations of Title IX. And we know the Biden administration would like to march forward in confusing what the meaning of sex is. We think we'll win in the courts. We really don't want to have to go through that laborious process. But if we have to, that might be the only way we get to the right end.
Well, the trends are looking encouraging as more people stand up and speak out. Doreen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Tony.